Thank you for being here. Welcome to kind of more seminar style session, which I think is in a lot of ways better because you can be interactive with us, ask questions, and get to know Nicole Sanchez, who's just like all-star team player, one of the best people that you'll meet that went through Murrow. And so we're going to learn about Nicole today. I'm Imran. I'm a scholarly assistant professor in the Murrow College and the director of our online programs. And so I'm going to kind of be sort of interview style with Nicole to try to get you to ask questions and then get her to answer some questions to sort of show you her journey. And so we'll start with your introduction.
Sure.
If that works.
Yeah.
So do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay,
I'll
do it.
It's funny because people will say, what do you do? And a lot of times you're like, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
It's not like this nice little thing, but yeah.
Well, I'll
take
just
a shot at
I'll
it,
just
Imran.
give you
What
I'll
do
just
I
give
do?
some highlights. We'll do a quick overview and then people will get to know you a little bit more in just a minute. But you're obviously a Murrow graduate of 99, so that's cool.
Yes, last century.
And you worked in traditional newsrooms in Seattle and Yakima, different regions. Then you went into government, television, corporate video, lifestyle, news magazine. Managed more than $3 million worth of corporate video shoots for high-end clients like top universities, hospitals, governments, and businesses across the country. Currently, you're a host and reporter for a city stream on the Seattle channel, station that won Best Overall Station at last year's Regional Emmy Awards show, which you'll talk about. And then you are also a fill-in host for Idaho Today, which I'm sure you'll talk about, a lifestyle show on KTVB in Boise. And you produce a lot of corporate videos as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know why you're sitting here. You haven't accomplished anything. You've done anything, so. But, I mean, I hope that just hearing that is inspiring for our students because that's like you came from Murrow and you've done all this stuff and, like, hopefully they can believe that they can also do that too one day and be in your seat, get introduced with, like, a laundry list of accomplishments. So first thing we want to do is just ask students, how many people are PR majors in here? Okay. Advertising? Okay. On the journalism, media production side? Okay. Am I missing anyone? Who did I miss? Is there anyone else in here that I missed? A different major, different branch of the tree? Okay. What do people want to do? We'll kind of get a feel for that. Or do you want to be behind the scenes? Anybody want to be in a news station behind the camera? Raise your hand. In front of the camera? Raise your hand. Okay, good. So yeah, we'll talk about that too, and we'll hopefully get some interaction from you. So the first thing is you worked with Natus, so you can kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
And
So like the job I do the most, I spend the most time on, I actually don't get paid for, which is what's so funny. Has anybody heard of Natus? Okay. National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And I brought a little visual. I did not bring the full-size one because they're actually plated in gold and very heavy, but I thought it'd be fun to pass around. We are responsible for the Emmy Awards. And so that was actually a gift to me by the Northwest Chapter for serving for 4 years as president. I was with the Northwest Chapter for 10 years, and I encourage all of you to go to natusnw.org at some point. We have scholarships. I am a past scholarship recipient from the late 90s, and those scholarships, you get to come to the Emmy Awards in Seattle and be part of that and get a mentorship program, and we award 3 scholarships up to $5,000 each. So highly encourage that. And then we have the Student Production Awards, and those are in person. For a while after COVID, they weren't, but those are in Seattle in late May, and encourage you to submit work that you feel is award worthy. I will say, because I serve on the branding committee, that sometimes there's confusion and they'll say, oh, I want a student Emmy. It's not quite the same, but it is from the National Academy of Television Arts and Science. And if you place regionally, you go on to nationals, and we have seen, Pullman High School, they have one at high level. So it was really neat to see some students. Anybody from high school in the room right now? Is this all college? Just so I...
all college today.
Okay. And then a big role I stepped into, so I served for 10 years with the Northwest Chapter. I stepped into a national role last year. I'm the vice chair of the chapter council. We're the group that represents all 19 chapters across the country with national, and that is a board of about 60 people. And so I spent a lot of time serving in that group. So that's why I always joke. The other stuff is freelance and fun, and I get paid for, but a role I do more of is for free. So we wanted to show some clips I brought a couple documentaries, and then also I have one of my favorite photographer editors in Seattle put together a video too for his thoughts on how to create award-winning work. But I thought if we could start by showing a documentary I produced for Idaho Public Television. And one of the things about award-winning work is I feel like most of the work I've created that wins awards, there's hardships, there's challenges, there's roadblocks. So I got assigned this. I asked in January of 2020, I just moved to Boise, Idaho about 6 months prior, if I would produce a documentary on ACEs. Has anybody heard of adverse childhood experiences? You understand? So childhood trauma, if that is not treated, if you didn't have the support you needed to heal properly, can really have lifelong effects. So as you can imagine, it was a lot of starting and stopping with production. We pivoted for a while and did a bunch of just stuff online, short resilience clips. And so the focus is on how to heal properly. And I will say, I just want to warn you, I'm a mom, I've got teenagers, and I understand trauma. This short clip is pretty raw. You're going to hear from some people. This is the opening of the documentary. And since I'm not able to show the whole documentary, I don't want to leave you there because it's going to be the heavy part about what people experience. But do know all of these people have done incredible things and they have healed. So if we can play the resilience clip. And this did go on and was picked up by, I think, 124 stations across the country for PBS.
My childhood is a bit of a mystery to me. I had no idea that that was something problematic. The fact that you don't remember most of your childhood could be a sign of trauma. I remember maybe 15 to 20 minutes of everything leading up to maybe when I was 8 years old. It's all blank to me.
I was sexually molested when I was about 9, right after we moved to Oregon, with my dad drunk in the living room, and it was his best friend that came over and got him drunk and then abused myself and a couple siblings.
I remember running around with all the kids, neighborhood kids, and running around a corner and seeing my brother on the ground getting kicked and beat up by a bunch of kids. And I just stopped, froze in my tracks. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I just sat there and stared and, in disbelief, and I felt like I couldn't do anything about it. Well, next thing you know, they pick them up, start hugging them, telling them good job, congratulating them. Little did I know they were jumping him into a gang.
My brother died when I was 9. He was 8. He was hit by a car behind me. And that changed my life, that moment. The community blamed me because after he was hit, I went out and I picked him up by his arms, like, get up. That's all I could think is like, get up, are you okay?
These people all have something in common. They've experienced significant adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs for short. If left unresolved or untreated, those experiences can create childhood trauma and toxic stress that may last a lifetime.
ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, based on a study that was done
So,
20-some years ago.
Again, remember, this is
in San Diego with
2020.
Kaiser Permanente and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and it focused.
And we ended up doing 45 interviews across the state. When you're doing something, I learned a lot on this project. This was the first long format documentary I've ever produced. Prior to this, I had done something for the city of University Place, which is a small city near Tacoma, Washington. That was 20 minutes on walkability. This was a huge monster project for me, and then the timing and the year of it. And some of that video, like that historic photo with the satellite, and then the grainy images, I learned a lot because to me, I was like, oh, those aren't good quality. We shouldn't use them. And Idaho Public Television, if you walk the halls there, it's wall-to-wall awards. I'm not even kidding. They produce such high quality programming and learning a lot from people who had done much more, experience with documentaries, and learning that set the tone. That's the flavor, that's the feel. So don't be scared of using something, especially if it gives a historical feel, that black and white, it's a little grainy. It's okay. I had to learn to, embrace that and look at people who've been doing, long format documentaries for a long time. And this documentary ended up winning, I think, a half dozen awards. It went far. It got a Rachel Murrow, didn't win the Emmy, but it got a nomination, and it went very far. It also spurred, which was such a shock, It's part of a training curriculum used now. I hosted some workshops on Zoom, and so it really helped people. And that's, like what I want you to see is award-winning work. Like if you're passionate, of course it has to have a level of excellence. And even though like you see some not great quality stuff, it set the tone, the historical value. So if you go into documentary work, just know it's so different than traditional news. You're going to take time, learn from others, and it's really empowering, and you can really cause change. In fact, there was a whole lawmakers dinner screening. We got to meet with the legislature, and they really embraced this, and there was a proclamation about resilience. And so it had an impact.
Yeah.
And it's one of those stories that like I was so passionate. I got to meet incredible people. And you and I talked about like learning when you're doing an interview when to shut up. Mm-hmm. I'm naturally like a really compassionate person. And so if somebody starts to cry, I really want to be like, can I get you a tissue? And letting the camera roll and just sit with them in that. And then you're capturing that heartbreaking sound, right? Like people, they share stories with me. I'm not sure I was like the best news reporter because I would show up on those doorsteps of people whose child had just died. And it didn't matter to me if I got the interview. I was just there as a human being first, and to be kind and compassionate. I think that's some of the values we learn here at Murrow. And honestly, some of them never gave me the interview, but some of them became friends and like kept in touch with me for years, which was something that to me, like I can go home at night and sleep and feel good about it. So I don't know that I was like a great, when I was at Q13 or Como running around and, on door knocks and stuff. But to me, award-winning work, like you got to love it, throw your passion into it. And then let's just be honest, you're paying for it, right? Whether it's your station or yourself, you need it to be a high level of excellence that you're confident in because it's an investment. It's not always cheap to enter. Student production awards are though, and we've had some programs with the Northwest chapter, especially for like lower income schools or schools that have never entered before, where sometimes we'll just waive the fees because it's really about, we want you to just get involved. It's not, Natus is not at all like a money-making machine. It's all about just giving back in service and rewarding excellence.
So just to summarize, I think that's why you're great at what you do, because you're human first and you care. You give an SHIT about what you do, And I think if our students take nothing else away, hopefully they get your passion and that she cares, right? So when you show up to somebody's door, when you're going to complete a project, when you're filming something, when you're asking questions, like, do you care about this or is it just transactional, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing I take away from you when I talk to you. Are there questions from our audience?
Yeah, like we want this to be interactive.
Do you have anything you want to follow up on? Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
I was curious about documentary work. You said you were able to go a lot more in depth. Would you recommend? So I wanted to get into news, but I also am very compassionate about people. I love hearing their stories. I love getting to know people. Would you recommend going into documentary filmmaking for if you want to get more in depth with people, if you want to cover those stories, and how would you go about that for like PBS, for example?
Yeah. My path was about 7 years roughly in traditional news. There's also something I would even include in my resume. I got married 3 months after I graduated from here. We've been married 27 years this year. And so we followed my husband's career for a little bit. So I started in Southern California because of his job working in affiliate sales for the Outdoor Channel, because back in that day we had telephone books, and I looked in the yellow pages under T for television, was in a small town and looked it up and called them and got a job doing that. So my path is like a little more hairy than what you're like, do we even mention that stuff? But that experience really helped me as well learn about different people and gold prospectors and fishing stuff that I didn't necessarily know about. You could definitely start talking with like Idaho Public Television. Don't be shy, reach out. You can also work through me and I can help you learn about internships, because I think PBS stations do such an amazing job with the platform for documentaries. And of course, they've all been hit with financial cuts that we all know about. But it did work out good for me to do news, though, for a while. I think that was a really good framework, a good blueprint. One thing I had to learn, though, is when you're working with those photographers and they're setting up at a shoot, it's not like news where it's run and gun, right? It's well lit. they want 45 minutes to an hour to set up. And since I was managing these shoots, I really had to get feedback and learn how to pivot and adjust, which is hard after you've done a certain job for such a long time. And I have my favorite news photographers that we now do a lot of corporate video stuff together in Seattle that I've worked with, for 15, 20 years. And we all have certain quicker styles, but learning to adjust because you are taking more time. And a lot of those interviews, we were doing it outside because of COVID, which also caused challenges. Somebody's got the leaf blower. I swear, every time you start to, talk to them off camera, it's quiet. And then when you roll, and I'm not shy, I'll nicely go over, could you just give us, literally 10 minutes? Is that possible? I don't want to get you in trouble with your job, but you're trying to just make sure that you don't get distracting things going. But yeah, I mean, there are people that go right into documentary from the start. I just didn't go that way. And since that resilience documentary, it spurred off 2 more documentaries I did. Raising Resilient Kids, Mental Health Matters. It's a combination of a talk show I hosted with pre-produced stuff talking about mental health in teens, and I'd gone through, again, the whole state of Idaho, which I know people, it's a long stretched out state, so when you're traveling, you're going up and down the state, people in Seattle will be like, hey, I'm going to Spokane, can I say hi to you? I'm in Boise, Idaho. I'm like, I'm not near Coeur d'Alene, I'm like super far, it cracks me up. But yeah, just finding, start talking to people, happy to make introductions. If you feel like you want to go into it right away, that's great. Just be ready to learn. And we've got great people here too that have experience in LA with even bigger, connections and documentary work.
Is anybody still wondering what a phone book is? So we can go into that. I'll talk to you after.
Television. There was That's television fine. In Temecula, California.
Yeah. Are there any other questions before we get to? I have a list.
But I really encourage everybody, once you're out there working, join Natus. It's cheap and it's one of the best learning opportunities that you have. I encourage all of our creative staff to serve as a judge. That's awesome. Because it lowers the cost of entering your work for potential Emmys. But it's just one of the best learning experiences that we can provide for our team because you're seeing what other communities around the country are doing, and it's just it's a great opportunity. And I can't say enough good about Natus, except when we submit our work for NATOA Awards, they provide the feedback that we get on our entries, and we would love to see that from Natus too at some point.
Yeah, that's something that's strict from, I think that's probably at a higher level that, because it's and we don't judge the same regions, which I think NATOA might not also judge the same regions. So we judge outside. We don't, at this point. That's something I can certainly ask about, though. I have a national meeting in August, but it would probably need to come at a higher level, and then the chapters follow suit. But I will definitely ask that question. Because judging, you're right, is one of the best things you can do. You're going to get inspired, and it's, I want to make it clear, so with Natus, and I'm not sure how all awards work, but more than one, at least in the Northwest, can win, right? It's a high level, high score that you have to get. It's on content, execution, creativity. So it's not a horse race. We can have more than one winner. And technically, you could have no winner in a category if people didn't score high enough, that it's just a high level.
And just to clarify, it's an acronym, NATAS, and it's like when you go to a club or a sports team, you automatically have now connected, and those are your teammates. Those are people that are going to know you and make calls for you, and that's what all of you students should want, like a group that knows your interests and will be like, oh, I'd call my friend who's hiring for an internship. Yeah. And that, so I know this isn't like the appealing, glamorous part of what we're asking you to do, but it's effective. So what Nicole is telling you is she's lived it, and that's why she's here where she is talking about this stuff.
And being a scholarship recipient, right? It was full circle to come back and start serving and helping out in different roles on the board. Mary Nam and I were scholarship recipients here at WSU at the same time. Anchor who just retired from Como, longtime anchor. So yeah, especially if you can win some student awards, get that on your resume here. That really builds up the resume, and it means something. People in the industry will get it.
Scholarships are cool. It's a fun word.
Scholarships.
People like hearing that. So let's just, since we're on that topic, and we'll get to audience questions just after you answer this question. What was your experience like at WSU? And so, what helped you the most? And I think the other question I had was kind of what were you involved with here on campus? So that kind of projected your career to go where it went.
So we didn't have the money for me to come all 4 years. I wish we did, but we didn't. So I went to what is now Bellevue College, but had been Bellevue Community College for 2 years. They did not have a television program at the time. In all honesty, I don't know if they do or not, but they had radio. So I did everything I could. And the radio station at that time was not student run. It was very hard to actually get on. So I started by doing drive time jazz, weather and traffic reports, and then worked into hosting drive time jazz. And that was great experience to learn radio, right? I mean, whatever you can do to learn all different things, writing for newspapers, radio, don't just go in and say, I just want to do this one thing. No, learn it all. So I transferred in as a junior, and I worked my ass off to get out there, get involved in Cable 8, get to know people. It was a little hard at first, right? Because there's people that have been serving on Cable 8 together, working together since their freshman year, and you're like this new person coming in and you're just trying your best. So I worked on Cougar Sports Tonight, not because I was great at sports, but because to me it looked the most reputable, the set, it looked professional, and I knew it could help me build my reel for news, because you can't take the news class, right away. So it's what I did. So I was the female anchor one semester, and then I was the producer the next semester, and realized at that time I was like, oh my gosh, producing is so much work. This is so hard. I don't know if I ever want to produce, which I mainly produce now. It's funny, as you get older, you're like, no, I do like to kind of manage it a little bit.
Yeah.
I also helped out. I did the radio station. I was like the promotions director. I was, do you still have Alpha Epsilon Rho, the Com Honor Society? It was Val Lindbergh. I was vice president of that. Yeah, I think those are the main ones that I helped out with. And then what helped me the most, there were amazing people. Elsa Camacho was so huge. I loved Roberta Kelly's class. Yes, it scares the shit out of you, because you could get an F. Still to this day, if I show up and I'm doing some sort of interview or hosting a lifestyle show, my main thing is I want to know their name, make sure we spelled it right, and that I'm pronouncing it right. That's my main thing, because I can just talk, as long as I get a general idea of what that person does, but making sure those facts are correct, it just stays with you your whole career, and it makes you cringe when people don't double check their work. And not to say accidents happen, right?
Sure.
We're human beings, but some of those lessons there.
Yeah, that's great. So do you want to take more audience questions, or do you want to show another clip?
I don't know, where are we at in time, or we can check time? What do you guys want? You want another clip, or you want to does somebody have a burning question they need to ask? Yes. Yeah.
Megan, yes, please.
I do communications and marketing for a hospice in North Idaho. And so it's a very niche marketing for end-of-life care. And I have the opportunity to speak with patients and families after during their loss, or anticipatory grief, or after. And my question would be, what is some advice when you're speaking with emotionally vulnerable people? How do you interview that makes them feel like their loss isn't your gain for marketing?
Right.
How do I
Yeah, I do a lot of fundraising videos too for the University of Washington Autism Center, Institute for Human Development Disability. Just did one with and first of all, thank you for what you do, because that's a really hard job. That's emotionally very draining, but it's so important. Somebody who had a very sick father for a long time and lost him, really appreciate what you're doing. It's a fine line, right? Because you don't want to push too hard. And I see clients, they're like, do we ask this family? We've kind of overused them. But that really helps tell your story. I don't want to say sell your story. Tell of what you're doing, because you would much rather people would like to hear from them. That voice is so powerful, right? To hear from people you've helped and how you walked them through that. So my biggest thing would just be with kindness. Don't push too hard. Again, I don't know that I was the best news reporter, because I'm not going to keep knocking on that door if they don't want to be interviewed, right? You don't want to push too hard, but letting them know. I will say though, it did surprise me through the years. Sometimes people do like to talk. They like to memorialize. It is healing for some people. It goes either way. You have some people that are and I know the climate is so different working in news now, where media is sometimes hated, and especially in certain areas of the country, sadly, right? But if you can if you can show them examples of ones you already have to make them feel more comfortable, with it as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great question, Megan. Other questions? Anyone yet?
I do Trailblaze. Oh yeah.
So the word freelance was kind of I heard it mentioned earlier, and I was wondering, did freelance work, was that what allowed you to do so much and have such a diverse career path, or how would you go about it?
Well, I didn't plan this. I thought I would stay working at either Como or Q13 in Seattle for like my career. That was my plan. I was a freelance reporter at Como, and my mentor, the late Bob Thronson, had to call me and lay me off. So they tell you this in college, and you're like, no, I will never why would I get laid off? No, you do. It will happen. And I was like the short person, lowest on the seniority. I was the newer hired one, and they had to lay me off. And I remember crying and thinking, oh my gosh, this feels like such a failure to me. Like, how did this happen? And a week later, I had worked connections, talked to people, and I had a part-time anchor job for Pierce County News, and that's like my first enter into freelance, that type of work. And then you just got to get to know people. It's in smaller markets, I find it's hard to find those freelance jobs. There's just not as much. So going from Seattle, to Boise, it was a lot of people that would make phone calls and say, oh, meet with this general manager. And I did the Shine a Light Award program on Channel 6, if anybody's from Boise, for almost 5 years. That was actually just a fellow Coug that like made a phone call, sat down with the GM. He's like, I want to use you. I don't have a program for you yet, but we'll find something. And those opportunities will open, but they can be a lot harder to find. And I feel like in the freelance world, a lot of it is just getting to know people and hearing about things, because they don't necessarily post it, right? I don't know that I've seen a lot of postings for a freelance whatever. But that does allow me to do a lot. And then I have 2 teenagers. I have a 16 and 18-year-old. We're very proud we adopted our children out of foster care. And so, I'm a busy mom, too. In fact, during that resilience documentary, my son was having a lot of very serious health problems, had to have sinus surgery, and it was like extreme stress. So again, it's like sometimes the most stressful times in your life or projects end up being your best, and you poured your blood, sweat, and tears into it, literally.
Yeah. Well, before we go to the next clip, I think I just want to remind students, it's not just what you do when you clock in. I think one thing that you can take away from Nicole, I call her a friend, and I'm happy to know her personally. It's that she calls everybody back, she emails everybody back, she's a team player. What I mean by that is if we've had students at Symposium who were interested in some things that she knows or does, and then she's immediately emailing somebody, right? So why do you care to pay attention to detail and do stuff? Even though she got laid off, she landed on her feet 5 seconds later because people know that she's legit and she's reliable and she's a good person. And so I think that sets the tone for your career if you just do the things when no one else is watching. So I can't emphasize that enough. Nicole's a great example of that. So if you get a chance, talk to her one-on-one, and you really be able to learn about some of those little details and wrinkles that make a difference. So you can talk about this next clip if you want.
I do. This is my passion project.
Yeah, so I'm glad you're showing an example of it, but go ahead.
Okay, so what we're going to watch was an all-volunteer effort. I spent a year of my life working on this. It started with, let's go back to 2020. We created a diversity committee for Natus Northwest, and we started talking about, as we were going to be celebrating a milestone anniversary for the regional Emmys, what could we do? What kind of tribute? And so the diversity committee said, let's take a look back at the history of television in the Northwest through the lens of diversity. And we took a very wide definition of it. We included a female in a wheelchair who was an engineer, and learning and hearing her story. And we're going into it thinking it's going to be the wheelchair that's going to be hard. And she would work the Olympics. She's like, no, it was being a female engineer manager, back in the 70s and 80s. We learned so much about it. And so we had these short little vignettes. We played the night of the Emmy Awards in Seattle. And one of the people we featured later said, this is such good content. You should do more with this. And I told my buddy Randy Ng, who we're going to see in the video later, because he's my main partner in crime on this project. And I told him what he said. He's like, let's do it. And I said, I don't want to tell anybody. I need some time to think about this, because it's big what he was thinking. This was a general manager of a PBS station in Spokane. And we said, okay, let's try to do this. So I took a year. I traveled to all of our 5-state region, Alaska, Montana, all throughout Idaho, Washington, Oregon. Again, guys, this is volunteer. I did not get paid. And we put together this hour-long program. And it has the vignettes, but it's also like a talk show where we interview and highlight some people and hear their stories. And then there was distribution, which I've never done distribution. They're like, what company are you using? And we're volunteers, so I guess I have to learn how to distribute this. So I think it ended up airing in 7 states, and it got on the Emmy app at the national worldwide level, which was exciting, and it did win quite a few awards. But one more quick thing, if bear with me, showing up to start taping this, I flew in, my flight was late from Boise, and I had people flying in from like Montana, coming from Portland, Oregon, so we could interview them. I took light rail.
Oh, boy.
If you've done light rail, I love light rail, but sometimes there's some challenges, like the Pioneer Square stop, the escalator isn't working, so I'm hauling my luggage up urine-filled stairs, walking in my like fancy outfit, and then I had somebody, unfortunately, who's yelling and screaming at me because he thought it was a flight attendant. Maybe when you see my dress, you'll say, maybe she does look like a flight attendant. They don't like flight attendants. Stepped over drug paraphernalia as I walk into City Hall, and I get there, and I'm like, so great, where are we in the studio? And we find out there was some miscommunication. We have the studio, but we have no one who can help us. It's literally me and Randy. And this is a big deal that's supposed to be live to tape, so it's only supposed to take an hour. And we're like, he cannot run all the cameras and direct and do everything from the studio. So he's like, well, we've shot in the hallway before City Hall. The hallway's beautiful backdrop, but sound-wise, you're next to the coffee cart that's grinding coffee all the time. The doorbell's ringing. And so it was so stressful. And then we're like, at 5 o'clock, we're like, great, it's closed. We're working from like 8 to 5 trying to tape this. Should have been an hour. There was an after-hours party. They're just clapping, and it's like, I've never felt so frazzled in my life. So when you see this, just keep in mind, like this was that cougar grit. This was like deep breaths, keep it together. This is gonna turn into something big. And there's like 10 more things that went wrong, but let's just watch a little bit of it so you guys can see.
That's awesome. I love the backstory.
I was actually the first woman to anchor a local newscast anywhere in the country.
I was the only Latino.
It was obvious that I was the only black person for miles.
I felt for the first time that I had a big target on my back.
He said, stay away from that car. And then the next thing I heard were gunshots.
This was very rare that a woman purchased this TV station and actually ran it.
You have to stay longer, work harder.
Once they found out he was Alaska Native, they were welcoming to him.
I've always been happy to see more perspectives in the room.
Hello and welcome to Northwest Television Trailblazers in Diversity. I'm Nicole Sanchez with the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Northwest Chapter. For our 60th anniversary of the Regional Emmy Award Show, we wanted to take a thoughtful look back at the history of television through the lens of diversity. After the Emmy Award Show, we realized the content was so powerful, we wanted to create a longer program that could be shared beyond our Emmy Awards event. This unique program you're watching is a 100% volunteer effort. We're making this special available to all stations for free. That's how important this content is. Let's start with Washington, where we feature several amazing people who've made important contributions to our industry. And then we'll be joined by some of the journalists from Washington we featured to learn more about their courageous journeys.
I started in 1968.
I came to Cairo 7 in 1982.
1978.
I started in the business in 1980.
1978.
1975.
I started in television in Seattle in 1974.
I was actually the first woman to anchor a local newscast anywhere in the country, which I didn't really know until some professor in Arizona wrote a book about it and told me.
I was the only Latino at Como Radio when I first came there. Actually, I was the lone person of color for a long time.
Mrs. Bullitt was, I think, one of the first women, if not the first woman, to run a television company. And she started in 1948, and it was the first television station west of the Mississippi.
I was never in a newsroom where the majority of people were black. I was always very used to being in the minority, very used to having to bring a perspective that somebody may not have thought of.
When I was working in Dayton, a woman was on the phone and she said, there are a lot of people in this neighborhood that don't want to see a lot of black people in the neighborhood. I'm walking across the street to get to my car, and from down the street, this person yelled at me and he said, stay away from that car. And I yelled back, and then the next thing I heard were gunshots. And at that point, people surrounded the house and started firing in the house. I was fortunate enough to not be hit, but several people in the house were. These things shouldn't happen and you see it on television, but this is one of those times when you're actually part of it.
Yeah, I experienced racism. This whole COVID thing just made every Asian American fear for their safety. I felt for the first time that I had a big target on my back, just because of what I look like.
A lot of the engineers were very uncomfortable working with women. I can't even tell you some of the things that it was said. I can't.
I would often hear, oh, you're the quota hire, or you're the affirmative action hire.
I started getting postcards addressed to Cooney Thompson, suggesting I need to go back where I came from. I dealt with a lot of that, but I did not dwell on it.
I never faced the sort of boulder smashing me in the face kind of racism that many of my colleagues have. But racism is always sort of a little headwind.
Mentorship is important, and so I try to pass that along.
I also had a lot of good mentors too that, were very, very supportive, or I wouldn't be here.
Just being an example, just a word of encouragement is all the mentorship that a lot of people need.
Whether it's LGBTQ, a person of color, or whatever it happens to be, if they can see themselves already in that position, they're more likely, I believe, to follow that career path.
I've always been happy to see other people who break molds, and I always saw them as just more perspectives in the room.
It's really wonderful to think about the generation of women working in broadcasting now who are so talented and so able and so confident. I'm really proud of all of them.
There are a lot of people out there who need that hand up, who need to be encouraged, who need to be celebrated.
The challenges that you face can be overcome. Our experiences and where we come from, we have great stories, we have great passion. We're American stories, we really are.
Play for one more second.
We are now joined by an amazing panel of some of the people we featured, many longtime journalists here. We have
But just to show, like, kind of, it's like these little vignettes and then talk show and bringing in people from the regions.
Yeah, so do you want to take questions after that?
Yeah, if anybody have any questions on that project.
Is there a way to monetize something like that? Can you get paid for it?
I wouldn't want to. No, that was like our gift to the community and like the diversity committee. Yeah, I wouldn't.
But in the long run,
in fact, it cost a lot of money to put together. So one thing I learned is there's this thing called errors and omissions insurance that some PBS stations have to have on a program. So we had to come up with money for the travel. So I would pair up with local stations and work with photographers that were volunteer stations, and then I think we had about 26 stations carry the program, which was exciting. But no, that was just I'm just crazy enough to do these volunteer. Like I said, you guys, like my job that I do the most with, I don't get paid.
Of course. Any questions from anybody? Cheap seats right there. Nosebleeds. No. All right. We do want to show at least a minute or two from Randy's clip, and so why don't we dive into that?
And quick though, like I just want to know. Randy was operating like 5 cameras by himself when we were taping all of that, which is extraordinary. And he was one of the main editors. There's a couple other, like Daryl Mitchell in Portland, Scott Sterling in Montana. If you get a chance, this is on the natusnw.org website under diversity, and you can see the full program. So we did produce like a PBS version, which is longer, a commercial version, and there's a promo on there. Highly recommend checking out like the Alaska and Montana stuff. MAPS Media Institute in Montana was fascinating. But yeah, you want to show, let's show Randy.
Randy's is great because it's addressed to all the students in the
Yeah,
in the room.
I asked him to put together a video.
We should at least watch a couple
let's
minutes,
watch Randy.
and then we can have more time for questions for the last
10 minutes?
8 minutes, 10 minutes,
okay.
Hey, I'm Randy Ng. I'm a photographer, editor, producer, graphic artist, animator with the city of Seattle. Prior to that, I was with King TV in Seattle. I've been asked to talk about making stories. So for me, some of my best stories have come from really off-the-wall banter before we start recording. It can be talking about anything, like where you grew up.
This is the best place to watch the Blue Angels ever. Hands down, everything. Right here.
Technically there. Boom!
Good, because you can't hear them coming. You can hear them leaving.
Or what's that on your desk?
If you don't have this type of balance in teams, you don't have success. I'm definitely a Raphael. I mean, come on.
Or what was your favorite thing to do when you were a kid?
I love Tetris. That was probably actually why I can do this job. That's really all it is professional Tetris. I actually had to uninstall Tetris in college because I was studying for the GRE, and like my grades were slipping because I was so obsessed. So yeah. Now you're the only one in the city to know that.
And I know that a lot of professors out there say, don't talk to your subject before you start rolling. But I think that makes them even more nervous when you're like ignoring them while you're setting up the camera, unless they have work to do. But I mean, for people who have to do super boring interviews with people who have super boring jobs, I think kind of making yourself feel more human helps make them feel more human, and it makes for a better interview.
It's such a proud moment to have him pin the badge. My kids, I mean, they're away from me every single day because I work hard, but sometimes they don't get to see that. And it's very powerful. Like, he gets to be a part of my experience. I want them to understand what it's about to service. What it about is helping others, not thinking about yourself, and really focused on making sure that you're doing everything you can for people. And that's what I do every day.
I've also found on the flip side too, somebody's just robotic, stiff, you just gotta know you're not gonna get a good interview. And that's life. Sometimes people just aren't good on camera. And no matter what you do, no matter how many times you ask the same questions, they're just not going to give you anything. So that's the way it goes. And you move on and you do the next story. So anyways, hope that was helpful. Here's some stuff that I did in the past.
This is the first annual Jimi Hendrix Memorial Guitar Toss.
I got some pictures so I can send Randy
Great.
to say, look, you were with me, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit about, I would love to have questions from the audience if you have questions, but we could talk about how you can connect with viewers through natural content, not forced.
Yeah, Randy's such a great example, too. One of the best things he does at the very end of an interview, and I'll say, do you have anything to add? But he'll kind of, I don't know, he really humanizes. So he's a photographer, right? I've asked all these questions and then I'm like, all right, Randy, I just know now. What do you want to ask? What's on your mind? And sometimes he's actually just re-asking a question I asked that maybe didn't get a really good answer. And it's those, we're done with the interview, but here's some extra questions and we're still going to roll. And those are almost always the best answers.
Yeah. Questions from the audience about anything in general from what Nicole's offered here today, any of her work, any advice?
Garrett.
Garrett. Yes, go ahead, Garrett.
My new friend.
Yes, networking is a gift of yours. So I'm curious, what are some practical tips that you would have for folks who are trying to up their networking game?
Yeah, again, being involved in organizations like NATIS, I honestly don't know that I use the Cougar connection very much because I've heard some really exciting stories about how Marvin made phone calls and, people couch surfed and, that type of thing. But really just, being out there, going to events, looking for opportunities. And I would say also being open, PR, you're producing a lot of video content and that kind of content is so important and powerful. And remember, it doesn't matter if it made it on a TV station or a news station. With the internet now, you have access to reach so many more people, and with social media, I don't know, I guess just being a nice person too, and remembering even in small markets, there's definitely people we've all worked with who are not very nice, who do not have good attitudes, and don't burn any bridges, right? They tell you that at Murrow, that's a big thing. You just don't know who's going to be your boss someday. Randy's my boss now at Seattle Channel, which we've worked together for over a dozen years, and now he's my boss, which is awesome and cool. So when you get older, one of the benefits is most of your colleagues and bosses, you just work with the people you like, right? The good people that you love to work with. And it turns into never really applying for a job, but just somebody texting, hey, you want to fill in to host, or that type of thing.
What one thing that you could offer the students is, who was your mentor and how did you choose that person? For them to think about who they should really kind of what's the person they could communicate with weekly and could help them?
Yeah, I've had a few mentors. In fact, Enrique, when I was going to be doing the voice work for the Resilience documentary, since he's like a champion on that stuff, he spent some time with me and we talked about that. But my biggest mentor was Dick Wersinski, who was the general manager at Como for years. And that was through meeting him through his scholarship program. And he was amazing to me. And at one point connected me and actually paid for voice lessons about 20 years ago for me. And yeah, just finding the person that cares about you. And I love to mentor. I'm working with Lily, and you know, she's come on 2 Seattle Channel shoots already. She's a freshman. Hello, like that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice for students, is that it can be anybody. I mean, professors included.
Yeah.
You know, and
then also I should mention, looking at people, and I heard somebody else say this in a session, when you're working at a station, find somebody that you're like, they may not even be older than you, but like, you know, they're going somewhere and their work is good. So I have an example of that when I was at KIMA in Yakima. Brianna Keeler was a couple years younger than me, and she had like double majored at 19 from Berkeley, and she went straight from Yakima to, is it the College News Network with MTV, CBS. She was like one of 1,000 people that auditioned and is, you know, a main anchor on CNN. And so I would have her watch my work and get her feedback. So there's been a few times where you're like, it doesn't even matter how far they are. You might be at the same station, but you go, they're good, they're going places, and I want to keep in touch with them.
That's awesome. Other questions? We have 5 minutes left. And please.
So in my work, even though I'm not in broadcast, we do videos, and I'm often the person who's asking the questions, and then my digital producer is creating all the video and things like that. And one of the things that we sometimes struggle with, we're creating videos, particularly for workforce development for the construction industry. So speaking to people who are multilingual, and English might be, and the most recent one we interviewed, it was his 4th language, and the person that we interviewed in the past, 2nd language. Any tips on getting good, strong interviews, we do our best to try to make everybody feel comfortable, and I say all the time, I don't speak any languages other than English very well, so I admire the fact that you're trying to do this interview in English with us. But any ideas on how to make them more comfortable, to get good quotes? Because usually we're asking questions like, how did this program help you feel more confident in working in construction? Or, you know, how did this training program help you? And sometimes it's really hard, especially if you...
So are they, they're trying to say it in English, you're not having it in their native tongue? Okay.
Yeah, so what we do is sometimes there's a thick accent, so we'll also caption.
So my answer might surprise you. So I produce videos in Vietnamese and Spanish. I don't speak Vietnamese, and my Spanish is not great. But utilizing people, and sometimes people will volunteer and help with this, that potentially, and think about how far that video could go. If you are having somebody with you that can ask the questions in Spanish and help you understand and put that together. And then, you know, you can subtitle them too. A lot of times, you know, you're subtitling things on the internet a lot now, but try to stretch yourself and see if, and again, people like volunteered. One we did, it was a corporate video shoot, but the Vietnamese, they were able to help volunteer. And I did one all on my own in New Jersey not too long ago, earlier, let's see, it would be last year, with a charter school that was primarily for immigrants, Spanish speaking, did like all the interviews, first in English, they wanted an English version, then in Spanish, and then just worked, you know, together with them, make sure I was understanding, you know, because there's different areas where they were from versus where a lot of their students and the dialects and everything. But maybe try to see, and people are happy to help out. Otherwise, just, here's my spiel. Like when I sit down with somebody for documentary videos, like I tell them we want it to be standalone sound. So if they can repeat back part of the question and the answer, you would get every now and then somebody who's literally like memorizing the question. You're like, no, you don't need to do that. I remind them it's not live, it's fully edited, so there's no pressure. And I tell them, you control this. That you take a break when you want to take a break. If you need water, like if somebody's just getting red splotches, like it's interesting, it's a lot of times it's the engineers, it's the doctors, like I do a lot at national labs, and they just are in their head too much. I also tell them don't memorize the answers. Like corporate video, you do actually have to give them the questions in advance. That's just the way it is. They're paying for you to do this. And I say just think of a few bullet points, and I'm always reminding them, like, you know this, you live this, you work it every day. You don't have to hit every single point, right? And just really setting the tone that they empower them.
That's super helpful too, because you're making me think of my colleague who also is responding in English, but also so nervous. He's like, I thought I wrote down all my answers, and I'm really,
Don't memorize the script. Yeah.
Like, no, you just say
And
it.
then they're looking, you're probably sitting to the left or right of the camera, so they're not, I always say you don't have to stare into the camera, but then sometimes their eyes wander and we're like, let's just redo that, and look, try to have, I always am saying, if you can, try to have a little more concise sound, because the worst thing is a 10-minute answer. And a lot of my bread and butter, what I usually am producing is a 5-minute video with a 1-minute version for corporate video. That's just kind of what everybody wants nowadays. And 5 minutes is long in television now. Yeah. So you have to have really good supporting B-roll, active and interesting B-roll or photos. If they'll send, you can make those work and put some motion to those.
It's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we'll just want to reiterate, you're a special human being. You're a great, you're a great representation of Murrow, and I'll leave a couple minutes for students to ask you individual questions if they want.
Yeah,
but let's
sure.
give Nicole a hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to have you.